So I was talking to my brother the other day, and like,
This is a good story.
I don't know how this came up, and some of you appreciate the story more than others, right? So anyway, we were talking about him being more human, right? Or I made a comment.
Human.
I made a comment, and I was like, wow, you like, ever since your firmware updated, it's like you're like a lot more like a human. And then he like looked at me, but like kind of laughed, but he kind of like didn't. And he's like, "What the fuck does that mean?" And I was like, and I said, well, you know, I want to know. I want to know like where this firmware update came from, because like now he can do like small talk. He can like emulate some emotions. It's like crazy compared to because we were talking about Mark Zuckerberg. That's what it was.
Yeah.
We were talking about Mark
Zuck, dude.
The Zuck during the Senate hearing, right, where he was like got a bit of
Like an alien?
He's like an alien, right? He's just like, what are these human words, right? Like, so we were talking about that, and I was like, man, he used to be just like that, you know. And then this update happened, and so I was like, I don't understand. Like, I can you please walk me through it? Because I just feel like you're more of a full human than you used to be. And then for whatever reason that day, because like in general, whenever I like talk about him being a robot or like just like joke about stuff, he just straight up just completely ignores me, or just like it's just neutral. He just doesn't like respond at all.
No response.
But then that day he was just like, well, you know, let me tell you about how I process things, you know, because I feel like I've learned a lot. And I was like, here. So I sat down, and I swear to God, for like the next 15 minutes, I figured out how his brain works, and it explains so much about him. Are you guys ready? It's so good. I'm like still blown away by the fact that we had this conversation. So like, if anything happens, okay, like so normally we're very much just like we're a collection of our like experience and our biases and all our personality, right? It's all kind of like rolled into one thing. So you kind of just react very organic. Like that doesn't work like that for him. You know, what actually happens is something will happen, and depending on what that is, that event, you know, he will in his brain he'll start looking for this event or this this topic, right? Usually they're I guess they're categorized by topics. He'll look for this topic. And if he can find one, then he'll go in there and he'll do a little more processing, and then he'll find the most relevant scenario that has happened before that he has a record for, you know. And so for example, if somebody's like, man, I'm really sad that you know, I don't get to be around anybody for my birthday. You know, I'm just really down. He doesn't understand that because he doesn't have any emotions. But what happens is he sees that and he's like, okay, birthday, being alone on your birthday. That's the topic. He goes in and he's like, have I heard somebody say this before, and how should I react? He goes in there, and I'll go through the case where he does. Assuming that he does, he'll just find the most relevant one and ask him how he came, like how does he determine what relevance is? He's like, well, I just like go through it historically and figure it out. So there's like a lot of processing here. It's like really inefficient, and they're kind of like, they're all like small categories, right? Where you have to do processing to get to the first level and then the second level, and so. And then he would just pick the best response, and he'll just say that. But what happens when he doesn't? Holy fuck. I laughed so hard. I was like, well, what happens if you haven't come across this scenario before? Like, what if you can't find the topic? Or if you find the topic, what if you can't find, like, any historical records? Because it just hasn't happened yet, right? And he's like, oh, if I can't find the topic, I just hang. And I was like, I just idle. I just don't do anything. And I was like, what? I just sit there. And there's no response because there's no past response to use.
Nothing to reference.
There's no scripted response to use. There's no. he doesn't go out and look for it. He doesn't like try to figure it out with some kind of algorithm. He just stops. Just stops processing. It's just like a straight line. And I was like, well, what happens the next time? Is it just the same thing forever? You'll always just hang if I say something? And he's like, well, no, I record that incident, and now I'll have a topic with the scenario. And then I will base off of that the outcome of that scenario because I didn't do anything, and I determine whether I should or shouldn't do something. And it's all vague. It still doesn't make sense, by the way, because it doesn't mean you have a response the second time around. But I was like, fair enough. And then like it all makes sense now. I don't know if I've told you guys this story about how his coworker was really upset when he was at work with him. I'm gonna tell it for the sake of the story, but listen to this story now, but with the knowledge of how his brain works. Okay, so once upon a time, he used to work in the back of the house at a restaurant, right? So in the kitchen, and he was like prepping with his coworker. That's really fucking weirding me out too. It's not just you, because I'm looking at the fucking preview and I'm seeing you staring at me.
Because I'm just looking.
And like, and then they were like prepping, and then like I guess his coworker was like really upset because I don't know, some girl rejected him or something, and he was just like, he started off by like whining, and he just got like really upset, right? And you know how when people like get to that stage, it's just kind of awkward. Like this person's kind of like tearing up and everything, so it's just like, oh, you know. But
Dude,
like
on the train yesterday. That's another story.
that's a whole other. It's not quite like that, but damn, that was fucking
That
wild.
was super awkward.
So anyway, this person was just like breaking down a tiny little bit at work. But like normally, if you're your coworker, if your coworker is upset, you'd be like, oh, you know, like empathize and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. Any number of things that you can say, right? But because he had never come across that specific scenario, what he did instead of saying anything at all, was he just walked over to, you know, there's always like that freezer room where you keep all the cold ingredients, right? There's like a whole door and everything. It's not just there, right? He just walked into the freezer room and just stood there. That's what he did. He just, like, this guy was like,
Holy fuck,
Evolution rejected
me. It makes me laugh every fucking time.
And then he was like,
what?
And then he just walked over, and then just went
stood in the freezer.
He just faced the wall, and he's just in the freezer. And he didn't do anything. I was like, you didn't say, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. You didn't say like, oh, you know, she doesn't deserve you. He just walked in the freezer room and stood. And then I was like thinking back to this when he was telling me.
Holy fuck.
He was overheating. That's potentially
what? I couldn't process it to go.
And then I was like, oh my god, he didn't do anything because he was idling.
Really funny.
No response. He just walked in and he just decided to position himself there and he just stood there.
That's a great story.
Anyway, let's get into the game.